Hello, good morning. There are quite some people here. This is actually normally I do technical talks and also sometimes about software engineering, but this is actually the first time I talk about management. And I was curious how many people will make it here. So maybe I thought maybe there's no one interested, because when I started my company together with my wife Claudia, she's here, I thought we will never have managers. This is like the worst idea that we could have. We don't need them. We can do everything ourselves. So, but then we got bigger, and I can tell you a little bit about that. Okay, so then let's start. One thing. My mother is in hospital. She's 91. She's a complete internet nerd, always online. And I'd like to take a picture with you. So maybe you can... oh, no, it's very difficult to see it. But maybe you can wave somehow. Say hi. Okay, thank you. I will send it to her. Okay, so great. Let's start. So how to become an engineering manager? I don't have a reference to Peter Drucker later, but if you ever want to read a book about management, I would advise to start with Peter Drucker's works first. Okay, so before we can answer how to become an engineering manager, we have to answer the question, what does management do? But first, let me say what I will not talk about. I will not talk about team building, agile practices, psychological safety, nonviolent communication, or any other soft skill. There are fantastic advances in how humans can create positive work environments. There's a lot of stuff about this on the internet. There are great books too, and of course there are great talks if you have seen in the morning. Today I want to talk about the lesser known side of management. Let's call it the hard skills and the skills we need as managers, and here especially as managers of larger groups of software engineering teams. So what does management actually do?
But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills, because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win. 240,000 miles away from the control station in Houston, a giant rocket more than 300 feet tall, the length of this football field, made of new metal alloys, some of which have not yet been invented, capable of standing heat and stresses several times more than have ever been experienced, fitted together with a precision better than the finest watch, carrying all the equipment needed for propulsion, guidance, control, communications, food, and survival, on an untried mission to an unknown celestial body, and then return it safely to Earth, re-entering the atmosphere at speeds of over 25,000 miles per hour, causing heat about half that on the temperature of the sun, almost as hot as it is here today, and do all this, and do all this, and do it right, and do it first before this decade is out, then we must be bold.
So this was the famous "We choose to go to the moon" speech from President John F. Kennedy that he gave on September 12, 1962 in Houston, Texas. President Kennedy's wish finally came true. It took less than 10 years, I think around 7 years. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were the first humans to step on the moon. But this was not only an amazing engineering achievement, it was also an amazing management job. Based on a bold vision and clear goal, a large organization of smart people was able to do something nobody else has ever done before. So the first thing we can learn here is that the first and foremost job of management is to create results. We have to distinguish two different things. One is activity, and the other thing is results. And activity without results is useless. So what we care for are the results, the outcome of something that we did. And this is also from his speech. Kennedy makes it clear that we must pay what needs to be paid, but we shouldn't waste money. And that the job will be done before the end of the 1960s decade. So obviously, money is finite and time is finite. But to achieve the result, Kennedy has set a deadline. What can we learn from that? We can learn that time and money are always finite resources, so management must be able to create economic results. I think nobody thought of asking President Kennedy if he would accept another deadline, maybe in the 1970s. And in his speech, Kennedy estimated the cost to $7 billion. But before the start of the program, it was re-estimated to $20 billion, which was very close to the real cost of $24 billion. So even the cost estimates hit almost the target. So what can we learn from that? We can learn that everything has a deadline. Nobody has infinite time. Results must be achieved until a certain date and time. If it is a car maker which has to build a new electric car platform in competition with Tesla and other car makers, or if it's a food delivery company which has to build platforms to compete with Amazon Fresh, or maybe the electric scooter startup that you see in California popping up, like Bird or Lime, that generated new excitement and high valuations for a new kind of mobility solution and now woke up large competitors like Uber and Lyft, hungry for the market they created. So the earlier we deliver, the better it is. It means we are faster than our competitors. It means that we can start experimenting early on the feedback from our customers. That we can improve our product earlier and faster, and maybe we even spend less money. And in general, we can say, faster is better than slow. So if Usain Bolt runs 100 meters in 10 seconds, then he's better than somebody who runs 100 meters in 15 seconds. The results are the same, but Usain is faster and he's better. And the same is true for any engineering organization. If we deliver faster, given the same results, then we are better. We should never forget that this is difficult. Breaking a deadline is very easy. Postponing work is very, very easy. Everybody can do that without training. This is the default. Your project will probably fail if you don't work hard on it. If we want to be successful in an engineering manager position, we have to be able to deliver on time. So our next learning is, every time we are building something, we must build something that our customers desire to a price they are willing to pay. It's often very closely coupled with a deadline. The longer something takes, the more money it costs. This can be direct costs like cost of paying a team of software engineers, or it can be indirect costs like opportunity costs, because you can't make a profit until you have delivered the product to your customers. So whatever we do, we must make more money than we spend. This is a simple truth, and it's not only true for companies, but actually for any organization. And it's true for every one of us. We are all CEOs and CFOs of our lives. We know we can't spend more money than we earn. So companies have to make a profit. This is not about optimizing shareholder value or maximizing profit. These are not valid strategies. Companies have to make enough money to compete in the market, to innovate. And the black zero might not be enough, as we have to put money in the bank to create the future for the company of tomorrow, for innovations and moments of crisis. The most important thing is to understand that we as engineering managers are responsible to create economic results, and that means we have to deliver the results that the organization expects from us. Let's call this our performance. So performance is the accomplishment of a given task measured against the preset known standards of accuracy, completeness, cost, and speed. This is different in all organizations what that is. But this is what the organization we are working for expects from us. Or maybe it's your own company. When you start your own company, you have the same things. You have some presets you have to fulfill, because you run out of money if you don't. And we as engineering managers are responsible for the performance of our organization. Let's take a look at an example. Here you can see like a very simple org chart. You can see on top like some kind of engineering director. Then we have in between engineering managers managing subgroups, and they have several team leads working for them. And then in the groups are the engineers. So managers are managing managers, and on the first management level, the team lead level, individual contributors are managed. Individual contributors are responsible for their own work, while the manager is responsible for the result of her organization. So if we are building an organization like that, or if we are assigned to run such an organization, how can we make sure that the performance of our organization is high? And that is finally the task of management. The question first is, can we just trust? We often see all kinds of people, young and old, experienced and unexperienced, struggling with the concept of trust. This is the most repeated sentence today. It's like, just trust your team, everything will fall into place. And of course we trust the people we are working with. But can we just trust a team or a team member to always find the right solution and always do the right things on their own? And as we all might guess, no, we can't just trust. We have to know that people are able to do the job. If you are a knowledge worker or work in a profession where advanced skills are needed, you first need to have knowledge and the skills to do the work. For example, we can't just trust a young heart surgeon to do the job. We have to make sure that the surgeon had the needed skills before he can work on the open heart. And this is also true for programmers, as we are often operating at the heart of the business of our organization. Andy Grove, the famous and brilliant engineer, co-founder of Intel and longtime CEO, called this concept task-relevant maturity. You can read it in his book, High Output Management, which is like a management book for nerds. Highly recommended. So task-relevant maturity. This is a combination of the degree of employees' achievement orientation and readiness to take responsibility, as well as their education, training, and experience. First, we have to ask if a person wants to achieve something and to take over responsibility. Only then we can assign an important task to somebody. But the will is not enough. We have to ask, is this person able to do the job? In our hiring process, we try as much as possible to find the right person. But this is very difficult. There's no guarantee that the person can do the job. So we have to assign work and see if the results are what we expect. We measure performance and reduce to monitor the results the more success we see. But still we should monitor the results closely to avoid surprises. Because when you have surprises, you have to fix them, so it's easier to prevent them. One thing to note, that normally whenever you take over a new responsibility, your task-relevant maturity is low. Sometimes people say that we should not promote our best engineers to become an engineering manager, because this is like a complete reset for the person. The engineer will start from zero, having no management experience. Failure is very likely. But should we instead promote the second best or the third best? Of course not, as we can imagine that this would create even worse results. But let's continue. We want to measure results. We first have to communicate what results do we expect from people. And this is about goal setting, and this is the most difficult part even in larger organizations. All organizations that I've seen so far really suck in setting goals and communicating to everybody, that everybody's on the same page. What we have to make sure is that we get the right things done. So these are the objectives. The objectives are the what, not the how, not the why. We have to communicate what we want to achieve. We have to communicate what the objectives are. If this is not clear, people will insert their own objectives or will just do what they think are the goals, which is likely not what we want. Then our organization is not working towards shared goals. People will move in different directions. Everybody is following their own path. With manual workers, blue-collar workers, it was simple. The tasks were clear, like on an assembly line. We only had to define how the work had to be done, and then we tried to make it faster. So we worked on increasing the efficiency, making things more efficient, making the same stuff faster. With knowledge workers, it's completely different. It is not the first thing we have to optimize. We first have to make sure that people are working on the right things, what people are doing. That we get the right things done, then that means that we are effective. Because it doesn't matter how efficient you are solving the wrong problems. So being effective means getting the right things done, and that creates results. But here's another aspect of being effective, which we have to consider. We have to make sure that everybody's doing what they are good at. Of course, when you start out with something new, you are maybe not good at something. But maybe you're working on the right things, but you're not getting things done. Like when people are spending too much time in meetings, or people have never time to become proficient in one area. Programmers should always write programs. Researchers should do research. Product managers should create products. If they spend a majority of their time with something else, then something must be wrong. And although part of writing code is, of course, understanding what customers need, talk with customers, we need communication to do that, and we need to talk to people. And we all might agree that programmers should talk directly to users. We have to make sure that we are making strengths productive and let people do the work they were hired for, and that they are doing what they are good at. But what if people are not doing, are not able to do what we need, if their task relevant maturity is low? So this is maybe surprising for some of us, but it's true. Sometimes we have to micromanage. Micromanagement is normally a bad word for us, but it means precise and detailed instructions, more or less. If the task relevant maturity is low, we have to give very precise and detailed instructions, which we would normally classify as micromanagement. But if somebody doesn't know what to do and how, then this is exactly what is needed. Our task relevant maturity is always low when we start something new. So when you hire new people, it will be low maybe. And if we have a low TRM in our organization, we have to explain in detail how something is done. It's an important part of growing and teaching people, and it's not bad in that situation. And although there's much to learn to become an engineering manager, and there's no one management style that works best, this already gives us a very powerful management framework. We can now ask 4 levels of questions to coach for performance. What are our objectives? What are our goals? Are the goals clear? Are we effective? Are we getting the right things done? Are we working on the right problems? Are our people able to do the job? Do they have a high task relevant maturity? And are we making strengths productive? So let's try an example. Let's say, imagine the performance of these 4 teams is different. One team is red, has a low performance, so performance means whatever your organization needs from you. And it's lower what the organization needs and expects. 2 are orange, medium performance, below of what we need still. And 1 seems to be green, so the performance of that organization, what the organization needs or above. How do we solve this problem from the perspective of an engineering manager? So how do we get the performance that we need? So first, the engineering manager asks, are my team leads getting the right things done? Are they working on the right things? Do they know what we expect from them? And if not, this is the first thing we have to fix. We have to set clear objectives and communicate them well. And then we have to ask, do they have a high task relevant maturity? Are they able to do it? And if not, we have to fix that. We have to coach and train our team leads and give them feedback on their progress. And that is why we think that it's good to become an engineering manager, and before that you were for some time a programmer and made these experiences that programmers go through when they build things. But how does it look from the perspective of the engineering director? From that perspective, one group is more performing low, and one group has a medium performance. So, and again, the engineering director can ask the same questions about his engineering managers. Are the engineering managers working on the right things? Are they effective? Do they know what we expect from them? Are the goals clear? Do they have a high task-relevant maturity? Are they able to do the job of an engineering manager? And are they actually doing what they were hired for and what they were good at? And how would we measure the performance of the engineering director? So we see here that the two groups have a low and medium performance. We consider the engineering director's performance also as low. He has two groups and they are not performing well. So from a higher management level, which is not shown here in this slide, we might consider to exchange the engineering director if the performance of the engineering organization is not getting better. So this is like in sports. If the team doesn't play well, you don't exchange the players in the team, you get a new coach. And last but not least, you can take the view from the perspective of the team lead. On one team, all members are performing low. And I don't mean this in a bad way. It's maybe they're just hired and they don't know what they have to do and they still have to learn it. And the other team is a mixture of low, medium, and high performance. So maybe there's one senior guy and one very new and one midterm guy. And the team lead can ask the same question about his team members. Are the team members working on the right things? Are they effective? Do they know what we expect from them? Are the goals clear? Do they have a high task-relevant maturity? Are they able to do the job? Are they actually doing what they are hired for or where they're good at? And of course, every team member can ask these questions about himself. We see that this is not only about leading others, it's all about leading yourself. So this means, in the end, to become an engineering manager, we should start by leading ourselves. Do you know what is expected from you? What are the goals of your organization? What your customers need? Are you able to do the job? What skills are missing? What help do you need? Are you doing what you're good at? Can you focus on that? How can you get better? And does your organization help you? And does your management especially help you? And this is actually what you want to become in the future, somebody who can help to answer these questions to the people that start out in our business and in our world of software engineering. Thank you very much. Any questions? I can see anything, so.
So first of all, thank you very much for the nice pragmatic presentation. I really like it. And I would ask very obvious question. I guess it's asked everywhere on the internet, but would like to know your opinion about that. Would you prefer to have engineering managers or team leads with the IT background, or just whatever people you feel just fit the role? Because it's, I guess, the most obvious question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question. I think we see now that advances in managing organizations and creating positive work environments, but that also create results, comes very much now from technology business. So we see all these principles that I was talking here coming from the 50s, especially from Peter Drucker and Andy Grove, and currently modern technology companies are applying that, like Google, Facebook, whatever. So and so we see that the change is coming in business management, coming from tech perspective. Maybe we are not so status-oriented. Maybe we focus more on creating results than it's maybe normal in management circuits. So maybe this is because, maybe this is the reason why we see the advances coming from that perspective. And I think that it's very beneficial for an engineering organization to have a programmer running it that was also working as a programmer when he was younger and grew up to the ranks, started several projects. So you should have, I think, experience starting several projects and bringing them to maintenance phase over years. So it's an accumulation of experience, what kind of problems you will run into. And then I think you are more suited. Problem today is these people are not existing. So you have to train them, you have to get as much technical background as we can, but actually people are not existing. But I think that in like 20 years, it will be normal that the CEOs of large companies will all have a programmer's background. And you already see this already popping up. So my answer is yes, I think it should be, but today it's always not possible. Any more questions? Ah, yeah.
Thanks, Stefan, for your talk. I have a question. You mentioned at the beginning that your first thought was you're never going to have managers at your company. And on one of the last slides, you had actually like kind of implemented 4 or 5 levels of management. I'm currently working at a company where we're like 1,000 people, and we don't really have managers. We're having more of a mentor kind of model where it's like the person who's closest to the problem is having the most knowledge solving the problem. What was your progress from coming to like implementing that multiple levels of management?
Yes, so of course, this was only the example. We also don't have multiple levels of management. But for us, it was like we are now 120 people, 90% are engineers. We are doing this since 20 years, so we have a lot of experienced people and we hire new people all the time. So we have a mixture of everything. And we know that when you have people getting into the role of a team lead, we have to help them to fulfill this role, because normally maybe it's a stereotype, but it holds for myself. We are not feeling very confident to lead people. Maybe you always want to have like a group of people and come to same conclusions. But we are also maybe bad in giving bad feedback, and we have to learn to lead a group if there are problems we have to solve and where we are not on the same page with everything. So I think we did until we were 80 people. Claudia and me were more or less leading directly the teams with the team leads there. But after 80 people, it was not possible anymore for us to have enough time for all the teams. It's too many context switches that you have. And then we pulled out the most experienced team leads that were like more than 10 or 15 years and got them into the engineering level, engineering manager role. And they were doing like projects for 10, 15 years. In our company, we did like 300, 500 projects last 20 years. So they're very experienced. And this was very natural for them to get into that role. And this worked very well for us because we are now able to create new teams very well. And if the task relevant maturity is high, we can leave them alone. And if not, we have to help them. This is what management does. Does this answer the question? I would also ask a question to you. Does it work, what you're doing?
Thanks. I would say it works pretty well. But I think it's maybe I have to explain it in a later talking to you directly. Yeah.
Because there are several ways to do it. This is one way, but if you are having engineering manager roles, I think this is one path.
Okay, thanks.
Any more questions? There's one. Oh, we have time. That's good. Yeah, throw the microphone. Great idea.
Test. Okay. One question. The first question is, how do you cultivate this ability to be aware of that all people are on the same page, and the skill of being reflective enough, if that is not what the people are currently? That would be my first question.
Yeah. So I hope I get it right. Maybe you can state the question again. I'm not sure if I understood it right.
This manage yourself skill that you talked about, if that is not what people are currently very strong at, how do you cultivate that? How do you improve for the people themselves and for the organization?
Yes. When we were smaller, it was much more simple because we were able to convey goals personally. So when you have like 5 or 10 people, you don't need managers. You are just a group of people, and you can talk about goals, everybody understands them and everybody knows it. But from one moment, it's too many people. You try to have an all-hands meeting and to try to explain some kind of goals you have as a company, but there's always some people sick, always some people on holiday, so it's very difficult to communicate, so the bigger you get. And this means it gets more difficult to explain the goals that you have as a company. And I think when people should be directing themselves, they have to know against what we expect from them. And this is, I think, today also in all organizations the most difficult problem, that people really know what is expected from them and what the goals are. And so what we then, when you're smaller, it's not a problem, but I think from 80 people it's getting very difficult. We started to doing objectives and key results, for example, OKRs, to show what kind of goals we have, that everybody understands them and everybody can contribute to them. And we also integrate the OKRs of our customers. So one very innovative company like Metro, Noam, the guys here from Metro, also doing OKRs, and we are integrating their OKRs with our OKR system so that we as a service company also know the goals of our customers. And this is the first step that you need to do. And then it's making more likely that people can direct against these goals. And then, of course, you still need the skills. And maybe you misunderstand things. So this is what we think then team lead and engineering management does to clarify goals, to check in on people, having one-on-ones, talking about accomplishments and what is good, what is not good, how can we help to get to the same vision and move in the same direction.
Okay, so I should maybe look up this OKR thing.
Yeah.
If I understand you correctly, there's no way around breaking down the goals into smaller pieces for top-down, correctly?
Yes. First, a company has some kind of objective. You want to build a new electric car that you want to bring on the market in 2019. That's the goal. When we work for a car maker, we have to make it work. This is our job. We have to build the software for it. We cannot say, software was not ready, postpone the car to 2020. It's not working. So we have to fulfill that goal, and we have to find out how. This is our job then.
Because that was the part about micromanaging. If the goal is
this is not. You don't do micromanagement because the goal is not met. Micromanagement is just to train people. If people don't know what they do, you sit next to them and explain.
That's what I mean. If they don't know how to fulfill the job or what exactly is needed from them.
Yeah, right. So, and also help them to learn something new. So micromanagement is always so bad. But if somebody doesn't know what to do, I cannot just trust he will find out. Maybe someday he will, but I can shortcut this a little bit and help them to get like escape velocity to be able to solve the problem himself or herself. Okay, any more questions? There's another one.
Dankeschön. So regards micromanagement, I'm here.
Sorry, I can't see you.
Never mind.
Yeah, you're pointing. That's great.
Regarding micromanagement, I think there's some kind of a fine line between not interfering too much and make people not feel like they are totally incapable of doing their job. I think that's perhaps a pretty tricky bit, right? Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, sure. I don't want you to get me wrong. I don't say micromanage your people. That's not what and we also don't have time for doing that. So if I had time to do that, I wouldn't stand here. So what I only wanted to say is, if you're managing something, you cannot just say they will find out themselves. You have to help people to get on the right track, to know what the goals are, and to help them to be able to achieve them. If we just leave them and then yell at them because they didn't make it, or then micromanage because we think we can do it better, that's completely wrong, of course. But we can, when a new person comes in your team, you do pair programming with him. And you sit down and explain how the stuff works. Maybe the first lines you write yourself. This is also some kind of explaining exactly how something is done. And this is what I mean with micromanage. I don't mean that you have to tell people who already know what they have to do, that you say how it should be done. This is not what I mean by that.
All right. +1 for pair programming. I think that's a really good practice.
Yes. Here too, but you see it maybe better. So.
I have a question. You gave an example where you talk about if the team is not playing well, you don't change the players, you change the coach. So in the worst case, if you did everything you can to train the managers and they are not still performing, and actually you might find out that it's something to do with the director, so like the person with the highest rank in the company. So what is it that you can do to actually move the team forward if the problem comes from somebody in the high rank?
Yes, that's a very, very good question, because this is like an ideal picture. This is like how this is maybe run when you are in like a all software engineering company. Yesterday I met a long time friend from Berlin. Markus, where are you? He said like in his company the management was more detached from the technical part, and they were doing it differently than what the people would have done. So I think this is the problem is that sometimes you cannot exchange higher management, and they are maybe not doing a good job. So the only thing that you can do if you work in that company and you want to stay, you should create some kind of revolution from below. So this is like create your own world, try to find out what the goals are, try to find out what makes this company tick, what the customer wants, and then try to create your own world to make it great. And or leave. If you don't like it, then go. But if you think it's worth it, you like the team, then try to create it yourself. If your company doesn't want OKRs, create your own OKRs and do it. And so you can, I think you can always do that. And because also most people don't actually know what we are doing from higher management anyway. So as long as we create results, as long as we create success, you always get a free ticket to do stuff. This is my experience. I was always mentored by people. I was always able to do everything that I wanted as long as my stuff worked and was ready on time. And this then creates a culture where you can achieve something. Does this help?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. That's not working. Microphone's not working? Microphone not working? Another microphone? Yeah, there's another microphone.
Now working?
Yeah,
perfect.
Working.
So one point you mentioned is to check whether people understand the goals, whether they are doing the right thing. But of course, there's also another side to that problem. Are we setting the right goals at all? So for example, when you take this example of the landing on the moon, that was a goal which obviously could be achieved. But what happens if you set a goal which cannot be achieved? Then you're actually demotivating the team because they need to do something which is not achievable. So how do you check also yourself against it? It's also about this leading yourself, whether what you are asking for is the right thing to ask for.
Yes, this is very difficult, of course. And as I said, I talk with a lot of leaders and board members and CEOs, and everybody like silently commits that they say goal setting is very bad in our company. We would like to do a better job. And this is when we also talk about then OKRs, how to do the mechanics better. But the mechanics doesn't help you to create better goals. So this is really like Kennedy was like a big visionary, and he was like moving the people with his speech. So everybody tried to make it work, and they did. And so the goal was ambitious. It was an ambitious goal. Nobody knew before if it could be done, actually. It was done, but he also said there's new materials we have to invent that are not invented yet. We don't know how to get there, actually. And sometimes you don't know if a goal is achievable. And you also need ambitious goals. You need something that you are not 100% sure if you can make it, because work is only fun when it's more difficult than you're currently able to do. So It should be always a challenge. If it's always easier, it's not fun. It's like playing in a football club and you always win. It's not fun. If you always lose, it's not fun either. But it should be a little bit more difficult than you think. So you need ambitious goals. But if you go too high, then it's frustrating. And I think this is a fine line to find out what is ambitious. And also this is on us when we create our objectives in OKR methodology on our level. We should also strive for taking ambitious goals and not safe goals, which we can make, because we will find out it's not fun. So we need that challenge as humans somehow to make fun work. And to find better goals, of course, today for management, higher management, is always like to look at what your customer needs. Then, because in the end, as a company, your only goal, or the only thing that you have to do as a company is to create customers. This is the job of a company, of an organization. But the customer itself decides what you are as a company, because they decide what they are paying for. And the customer defines actually what your product is. So you always have to look very, very close what your customer needs. And you have to really be close to the customer. And this makes it more possible that you create better goals for your organization. And you should always aim for something that is maybe in like 5 years what the customer has. So like extrapolating a little bit more. If you just do the same stuff that Amazon can do now, then it's maybe a little bit short-sighted. You should think about what would Amazon do next if they started Amazon Fresh rolling out like in all cities of Germany. So this is maybe another approach that we could add to that.
Cool, thanks.
If I may ask the second question, here.
Sure. Ah, okay.
Yeah. One of the things that you was talking about and a bunch of people mentioned a little bit is the deadlines and the goals. You need to do stuff on time. And I guess most of us here are in IT and we know that life is not always good. And you have deadlines that are not fulfilled. And you can approach solving unfulfilled deadlines in different ways. You can have like, okay, we roll this out with fewer features, or we have no tests, or huge code debt, or you manipulate people and saying it's okay that you won't see your wife for a week in the evenings, just work. You know, how do you approach this? Do you have solving it case by case completely differently, or do you have some of the best practices? Thank you.
Yes. Of course, just like working longer is not a really valid strategy. Sometimes you maybe do it for some time. You can do it for some days maybe or something. If something is really urgent, then you might do it. But this is not like a way you can run a project team. So of course, there are different things you can do. First is really defining what is a minimal product. What I see often with customers is that the reasoning, what is the minimal product that we have to deliver now in this iteration, because after that we can like continuously deliver. What is it really? And people are overestimating what is needed for the first thing. I think this is one thing. Then the other thing is, of course, you can use like, take shortcuts. But the shortcuts you take, we call this technical debt today. But technical debt is like something that is very misunderstood today. There's also a nice article from Martin Fowler about that on the web. Actually, I don't like all of his writings, but this is really great, I think, because he explains that technical debt is not a free ticket to create a mess. So, and you should look up this article because it's really cool, because they define technical debt in a way which I think is right. Sometimes you take decisions to reach a goal. So, but it doesn't mean you create a mess. You don't write bad code, you don't leave out tests. You create something that really works, but maybe it's not complete. So for example, you have some kind of configuration for your application, but you do the configuration in code. You don't provide a user interface for it. So if you have to do a configuration change, you have to recompile it, deploy again. This is not nice, but you should do this right. You should write tests for it. You should make it great. And this is still technical debt. This is what I think is technical debt. But if you leave out tests and if you create bad things, this is just bad code. And we shouldn't do that at all. Does this help a little bit?
It's a complicated question, I understand.
Yeah, it's it's difficult, yeah.
Do you have any experiences with teams that do not have a lead?
Yes. Actually, normally I think it's best when you just leave people alone and find out who leads the team somehow. But sometimes our customers just want one person they can talk to. And then sometimes we sit and say, okay, do you mind being called a team lead? Because you're doing it somehow. So don't change anything, just try to continue that and talk to the customer. So this is, of course, the whole team talks to the customer, but sometimes people just want a direct person. I think normally our teams are on average 5.3 people big, including the team lead, and the team lead is also always a programmer. So he writes code or she writes code. We have also quite a lot of cool female programmers. So, and I think this is important. I would love to go without any like, okay, you can now be a team lead. But also other thing, sometimes people are interested in that. So we also want to provide this as some kind of career path for people who like to do that. And as we see here, you are obviously all interested in doing engineering management somehow, or better understand how larger organizations work. So obviously this is also something interesting. And we as a company also see that we need to develop people from the ranks over years to do the things that we need when we're getting bigger. So also we need some kind of career path next to staying a programmer for the next 50 years, which we also provide, that you can grow into a position that you like.
Okay, thank you.
More questions?
Hello.
Where are you?
Here.
Ah, yeah, okay.
Cool. So I have a question. You mentioned something about trust, and you said that when you put a person in a new position, for example, you cannot trust him to do the right thing out of the box, which I more or less agree with. But then you said, yeah, we will micromanagement in a way, give him a kickstart. But in a way, I see that the lack of trust and also shaping the person, it is kind of counter to innovation or finding new things that the person is not able to come up with, the person on the management level, right? Yeah. So when you are limiting the person because you are trying to shape him in a similar way as you are in fact limiting his innovation, and you are losing a lot of opportunity there just because you think you can do things better, which is not always the case. So yeah, how do you deal with that, really?
Yeah, you're totally right. Also, different people, different problems. I only mean that we call this actually escape velocity. So the velocity that you need to escape the gravity of Earth somehow, that we try to teach people enough to get on their own. So we don't want to provide a training for everything. We want people to teach themselves, but we want to help them that they are not frustrated. So we want, because today when you come into a team of a couple of people and they're building like large microservices systems with hundreds of services and large clusters, and that should always run because people will lose money and stuff. You cannot just sit people down and say like, yeah, change some lines of code and see if it works. So we have to give them some security, that they understand that this is a secure place, that we help them to get their first baby steps down, and then we have them on the trajectory to become better by themselves. We provide guidance. We think this is really important to provide guidance. And also what we are currently doing is we have here our head of growth academy. So we are building leadership skills from the early beginning. So when you come into our company, you can also learn things, how to run effective meetings, how to give feedback to people, stuff that you normally learn over time by yourself, by doing it right and wrong from time to time. So, and we think if we give you some hints how this could be effectively done, then you are learning faster. And then you can still decide what is better for you. So we will not teach you one thing to do it. We give you some example how it's done and how it's effective, and then you can make your own steps. And I think we shorten the time. You can learn more things with that. This is actually what we want to do. Actually, we as a company, of course, we want to make you productive fast. You want to be a productive member of the team. You want to be happy with your work. You want to be proud of your work. It should be challenging. And to be able to do that, you have to learn, and we try to accelerate the learning process, more or less. We don't sit there and micromanage people. So this is not, please don't think that. Does this answer your question?
Yes, but maybe I have a follow-up question. So,
cool.
Do you have any people who feel that they are not trusted just due to this strategy, like the lack of trust that I have to coach them in a way? Did you ever face something like that?
Of course I can't know, because maybe if they don't trust me, they wouldn't tell me. But I think I think when you are not on the same level as the rest of the team, then you lose trust in yourself. You lose trust in your abilities, because we have like a really good group of people. They're all intelligent, had cool university degrees, whatever, programming since childhood. So it's a great group. And of course, when you come in, you want to fit in. You want to bring your own thing, but it's hard. And then I see when people are struggling that they lose confidence, and this is what we don't want. And then maybe they lose trust in themselves, and maybe also they could lose trust in our organization. But actually, we are so close as people in our company. I think, and this is also what I said in my talk, of course we trust people that we hire, otherwise we wouldn't have hired them. We know that they are able to do that, or we are pretty sure. And then we try to help them to get off the ground. And so I would say I can't think that there's anybody not thinking that we are deeply trusting them, even though we help them to get to the next level all the time.
Thank you.
Any more questions? More questions? Any more questions? There's another one. Are you still searching, or? No questions anymore? Okay, yeah, so I think then when nobody has a question anymore, I think we are done. Oh yeah, we are a little bit over time actually. So lunch is ready. Thank you very much for having me and coming with so many people here. Thank you very much. And yeah, when you have more questions, just meet me. Thank you.